All right, hello everybody. I'm sure you're here because you want to customize that nice LED screen on your brand new Odin75 keyboard. Well, I'm a noob just like you. I just happen to read a little bit and find out how to do something, so I'm going to share that knowledge and hopefully you can do something with it. And if I said something wrong, please let me know in the comments or please correct me. Okay. So a few things you have to know in order to start the process. Well, let's first, what are you going to learn from this video? You're going to learn how to create essentially any GIF file that you pick. You will automatically convert it to a black and white image and convert it to the right hex code to put it into your keyboard. And this video will show you how to install certain software and the whole process on getting it onto your keyboard itself. Okay, so the setup is I would suggest you get an IDE, an integrated development environment, like example VS Code, this pretty black thing right here. I use VS Code. You can use whatever you want, Spider, Jupyter Notebooks, or anything. You can kind of get away with it just by using Notepad, but this will make your life a lot easier. Optionally, you might want to download Notepad++, which is this Notepad. It's just a nicer version of Notepad. You can use whatever you want, anything that can edit text files. And another option is to install Python, and that's going to help you use the script that I created to automatically create these codes for from your GIF files automatically. You can do it yourself, not using a script. It's just a lot of manual labor, which is why I created the script. It's just automatic. And then optionally, you can probably create a GitHub account if you don't have one. You don't need one. You can get away without using one. You can just go to the engineer's pull request and copy and paste some things. What you do need is a text editor, so like a notepad, and another thing you do need is to install the QMK MSYS terminal, and you would do that from the website. Okay, so let's start with a few things. So I'm hoping you already installed the IDE. You have Python, so you can use my beautiful script, and you don't really need a GitHub account. I'll explain some things. So let's go to Google. Let's go to QMK firmware. Let's just Google that keyword. Go to the first link, and this is the documentation on what you need to do. You can go ahead and direct yourself to setup. Here you will see how to, it's a really nice documentation step by step to show you how to set it up. Essentially, you need to download the QMK MSYS here terminal. You can just click on it and download it if you're Mac OS to do whatever you need to do from this setup to do it. Once you have that installed, you can go ahead and open the QMK terminal. It looks like this, just like any other terminal. You want to type in QMK setup, and when you enter this, it's going to automatically install all the files. I think it's from GitHub or whatever the source is, onto your local computer. So what this means is all the keyboards associated with QMK from different brands, you will find all the files in your local computer for you to edit and you to create firmware to flash into your keyboard, which is nice. We're supposed to have Odin75 already in this, so technically we don't have to do any more work if it was already approved, but there's a process in when manufacturers or like Keyboard Fans or other keyboard manufacturers, when they create a new keyboard and they want it to play well with VIA, they have to communicate with QMK and VIA. So QMK has to accept certain standard procedures and protocols and formats. So the KBD Fans engineer create the firmware and submit it to QMK through GitHub. And if it's the right format and if there's no errors, then they accept it, and then you will find it in their QMK firmware repository or library or source files, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to GitHub and just type in QMK firmware so I can explain a little more what's happening. There we go. So this is QMK firmware, the actual GitHub website. anything in QMK, you'll find all the keyboards related to QMK and VIA here. VIA has their own GitHub too. It's a separate process, I believe. But this is where you're supposed to find keyboard fans. Let's do a quick search. KBD Fans. There it is, the folder. These are all the accepted keyboards that QMK currently has as of April 7, 2023. As you can see, there is no Odin75. There's only Odin and Odin Mini. The Mini is not 75. That means they have not accepted KBD Fans engineers' work for the firmware. So another way to see that, we can go to firmware, go to pull request. Pull request is another way of saying, hey, I want to submit my work to you, QMK, please accept it. It's a pull request. So let's go check for Odin75. And bam, here it is. It's an actual pull request, open. And you can see who created it, Moy, which happens to be my name as well, but Moy I4681, the KBD Fans engineer, he submitted this pull request to QMK so they can accept and approve, so the keyboard can now work with VIA if it's approved. But there's a lot of changes that's happened. He's been glitchy. He hasn't really been active on it, and now it's on, I think, it's on QMK's hands, but merging is blocked at the moment. Okay, this really is taking a long time. So how do we get the actual files for Odin75 if it's not in the QMK firmware? Well, this pull request has all the necessary information that Moy has. Moy has all the files in his computer, and he uploaded it into GitHub so QMK can accept. So we can access it through GitHub. So we can click on this pull request, click on Moy, or technically that's his account. We can click on this Moy pull request. So he did a fork, and a fork is essentially, I'm going to copy QMK's files and then try to make some changes, and then I'm going to throw it back at QMK so they can accept it. Fork is just another way of copying it, or does it also cloning as well? Okay, so here it is. You can grab this link if you want to. If you already have GitHub installed and you know how to use GitHub, then just go ahead and grab this link, copy it, and clone it. So with VS Code, it's as easy as going to your folder where you want to be at. So let's just say I want to be in my clone folder. I want to clone so I'm going to clone Moy's, using the link, I'm going to clone his actual files, and I'm going to choose a folder to install it or save the files into VS Code. Yeah, clone here. Okay, so now with just that link, VS Code's going to do all the work and grab Moy's work, put it onto my computer so I can get the Odin75 firmware. That's currently not in QMK. So that's the GitHub way if you have GitHub and you have VS Code. But let's just say you don't. You could probably go to code spaces and then copy the code manually from there. There was a certain way to do it. If you go to his keyboards here, and you go to search for KBD Fans here, you will see Odin75 in his work, because this is what he's trying to push into QMK. So you click on that folder and you see all of these files, literally all of them. You click on each one of them and you copy and paste this into a notepad, and you save it with the same name and extension. So roles.mk, Well, technically, you'll need the Odin75.c and .h, the JSON h, the lib, the libraries you need. This is the meat and potatoes of your LED screen, and your key maps. Without the key maps, you won't be able to type on your keyboard. So you have to manually copy and paste this into a notepad and rename it appropriately. But we're not going to do that. So we downloaded the pull request here. So now I have all of Moy's KBD Fans files that he is trying to give to QMK. So this is currently his work. I'm going to go on the bottom left. I'm the master. I want to go to his branch because he forked it off. I'm not going to explain that. So now switching to his branch of Odin75, which is essentially when you create a new branch, you fork it, so and then you want to merge it back into the main branch so they can accept some changes. I'm going ahead of myself. That doesn't make sense. Don't worry about it. So now on the bottom left right here, Odin75, I am now using Moy's files for Odin75. So if I go to keyboards, I go to KBD Fans folder, and I go to Odin75. Bam. I have all the files necessary here. I can just edit and save. And I don't have to copy and paste each one. That makes my life so much easier. Okay. So let's actually, now that I have this files downloaded, I can go ahead and save this folder. So if I were to go to Documents, Keyboards, KBD Fans, bam, Odin75. All right, see this folder? This is what I want to copy. I'm going to copy this folder, what I just downloaded from GitHub, and I'm going to paste it into, when I did the QMK setup, it created a folder into your local computer, and it created a folder in your C drive, into your users. You go into your user, and then you go into QMK firmware folder. You go into keyboards. It's essentially a copy of all, it's the same thing as GitHub, but it doesn't have your Odin75. You go to keyboards, and this is where it pulls information to Flash. And then you go to KBD Fans, bam, and then you paste the new Odin75 here. Now you can work with this folder, and you don't have to worry about the pull request. Okay, so now you have everything you need to make changes and then flash into your keyboard. Okay, so let's get an image. I'm going to walk you through, this is using VS Code, and this is using a Jupyter Notebook extension within VS Code, so I'm using Python. Once you install Python, then you can use this script. And pretty much you have to install certain libraries, NumPy to create arrays, and Pill for Pillow, it's an image editing library. So here are some parameters I created. You want to put in the location of your GIF file. So let's pick a GIF file. I like, I think there's Pikachu somewhere. Here, Pikachu running. Pika run. Okay. So I'm going to type in Pika run. The output is the file it's going to save as a hex format. So you can just copy and paste this hex data into your files for the firmware, and then you can just flash it from there. And we'll walk through that. The write, you need that to be able to write files and create a new GIF and a hex file. Threshold is you're gonna have to play with in order to see how good the black and white image can get. When you convert a color image to grayscale, not everything's black or white. It's in between, gray, blackish, whitish, whatever you want to call it. but you have to work with black and white. So to either convert it to black or white, depending on the gray pixel, you might want to change the threshold from like 100 to 220. The colors are from 0 to 225. So anything in between that range, you can use those numbers to play to see how your image would turn out. Depending on where the pixel value is located, if it's above that threshold, then it's going to be a 1 or 0 or white or black. And then you stick with the OLED width and height, at least with this keyboard. The scale, if you're working with a big GIF and you want to rescale it smaller, you can do that. You can enlarge it as well if you want to do that. Offset is just a nice way of saying let's reposition this GIF file to center it or to the left-hand side of the image. And duration, how fast do you want your animation to play? Because we're going to create the GIF to kind of see a sample. So let's run this. And this is a Jupyter notebook, so each cell is a block, and you can hit play to run the code, or you can run all. But essentially, you want to run each block, or else it won't work. Okay. So here is we're going to open the image using the Pillow library. We're going to place the GIF path or the location of the actual image here. And we're gonna iterate through each frames, and then once we get one frame, we're gonna resize that frame with the scale, so how small you want it, and then we're also going to change it to a black and white image. That's what BW is, black and white. And you converted the syntax for Pillow is you convert it to mode L, that's grayscale. And then you want to say, hey, from a gray image, we want it actually just black and white points. So this is the threshold I was talking about. The values are only between 0 and 225. So if the pixel is greater than 150, then it's going to say, let's just choose 255, which is, I think, white or black. It's either one of those two. So you're forcing the image to be either black or white with this line of code. Then you want to create a new image, grayscale, the same height and width of the OLED screen. And you want to paste your new resized image and position it however you want to position it. And then you have the choice, depending on how the image is, to invert the colors all black or all white. It's just easier to work with. And don't worry about this. It appends to the list, so you can save and use it as a GIF file. This line of code creates a GIF file for you to see in preview. So if I run this, it creates a GIF file called output. I click on output, and it's white because the image might be too small. Let's do 1. That means it's I'm not changing the size and the position. I'm gonna start at the original position. There you go. So it starts from top left. That's 0, 0. So that's the original size of Pika. And you see how it's a white background. You can change that. The color here for the new image, you can change it to white. And it's the reason why it's the opposite, because I inverted the image. So this is how it would be, a white background, because Pikachu happens to be, the GIF is in a white background. But all the white pixels will be blue on your screen, so you want to invert that. That's why I have this code. Once you invert it, all the white pixels are all the blue lines in your OLED screen. So not the whole image isn't on, it's just these little pixels that are on. So there's Pikachu. You can move them by offsetting it. So let's move him. This is the X and Y coordinates. Let's move him to the right, maybe like 40 pixels, and play with it. There it is. And then move him down 20 pixels. It's the opposite. It's supposed to be negative. It's just the orientation is different. So positive means it's going down. Negative means going up. Just play with the numbers. You'll see. The threshold, Okay, this is what I meant. If it's 200, see how it changes the picture? It's fuzzy. If you go exaggerated the opposite direction, it's not as detailed. So find a sweet spot, play with different numbers, and you'll find a sweet spot that you like and just stick with it. So once you like it, you position it, you get the right threshold for the right pixel count, and then you can change the animation speed with duration. So let's make it slower. Let's make them, there you go. Very slow, but you get the gist. And that's how you can create, GIF files for your keyboard. It's that easy using this code. So once you run this, you create this GIF. This is a sample. This line of code gives you a sample frame of how it will look like. This is what took me a long time to create this code, to take all the bits and information, put it into bytes, and then put it all together and save it as a hex file. This line of code actually creates the hex file for you. So if we run this and this, it tells you have 4 frames created and the output hex is here. This is how it looks like. So I have 4 frames. You can just copy and paste this whole thing and paste it into your firmware code. That's how you would use this. It just creates all the hex files code for you in as a list. Very easy. Okay, so if you didn't have this tool, what you would have to do is manually do it. So you can use Photoshop to get each frame from the GIF image. You separate it out yourself. So you'll work with pictures, many pictures, and then you want to choose the picture. Let's just show you an example. You would choose a picture. Here's the image preview. You probably want to do it scale to fit canvas. You can rotate it. You can do a lot of things with this. This is very nice. It just doesn't do it for the whole GIF. You can also invert the colors, I believe. There you go, black. And you want to do vertical screen and then generate the code. So the vertical is, you actually want to do it as plain bytes. There you go. So you would actually you would do this for each frame. Say you're working with like 50 frames and you have to work with 50 images manually, grab from whatever photo editing software you have, separate those images, and for each image you put in here, and then get the code and copy and paste it for each image. And that's a hassle if you have a lot of frames. You could be working with 200 frames and too much work. So that's why I created the script. Okay, so now you want to get this image into your keyboard. Okay, cool. So this is where the IDEs are handy. Let's not save. I already saved the output hex. These are my 4 lines of code for the image that I'm going to use. So let's exit out of here. I want to edit the Odin75. You grab the directory of where your Odin75 folder is from your user account, because this is where the QMK is going to pull that information from. And you can go ahead and go into that folder and open your IDE in that folder. So now all the files within that folder are shown here, or you can just use a text editor here. This is the manual way. You can drag and drop and then edit the code manually here. That's if you don't have an IDE. You can do that as well. JSON, the library, the bongo cat. Here, you have to copy and paste all the code here. That's very doable too. You don't need an IDE, so that's how you would do it manually. Okay, so now you have your code. we go to the key maps. This is, you don't really have to worry about this. I mean, if you want to edit the default layout for Odin75 and map it differently, then you probably want to look into this and see how you want to map out your keys. Otherwise, you won't have a chance to edit it through VIA because it won't let you. So I would suggest you look into that if you want to have custom key maps. So now you want to go to config H. Oh no, sorry. Let me see which ones. Okay, so you want to go to your library and you go to bongo cat C. This is where your meat potatoes for your screen is. The KBD Fans engineer left a lot of notes for you to look at. So let's look at the idle frames. Right now, when the cat is idle, depending on the words per minute, it plays 5 frames here. So and he titles it nice idle 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And he has all this code. Each block of hex is a frame, and there's 5 frames. So you can replace this with the Pikachu. So with the Pikachu, you would grab all this code in here. And the frame is wrapped by squirrely brackets. This is one frame. It starts with a squirrely bracket and ends with a curly bracket. Okay, so you be careful not to delete the curly brackets for the actual function. This is the function. It starts here. Okay, you want to delete the ones for the frames because you're going to change it yourself. So let's delete this. Okay, so now you're left with a function and you got to put some frames inside here. So you copy and paste that Pikachu file or whatever file you have and you paste it into here. So where is that hex file? Text code, hex file. Okay, cool. So, well, that's ugly. Let's use Notepad++. Okay, so you would copy the first frame here and paste it. There. So now, once you paste the one frame here, you want to change the number of frames here, idle frames. It's part of his function and coding. If you have 5 frames, you want to change this number back to 5 or 3 or whatever number of frames you're using. So this, when the keyboard's idle, it's just going to show 1 frame, Pikachu standing. And then once you start typing, Pikachu's going to start to walk. So you might want to choose the second frame when he starts to walk. Delete that comma right before the squirrely bracket. And then when he starts to run, depending on how fast you type, I'm going to use 2 frames. He runs these 2 frames. Right? Bam, paste it. Easy. You save this file or you save it on your notepad. And once you save it, you can go ahead and go to QMK. There's certain things you have to do after you set up. You're going to have to flash the keyboard. So just one line of code here. QMK flash KBD Fans is the folder it's pointing to. So it's essentially saying, okay, it's going to QMK firmware folder within your user account and say, hey, within keyboards folder, go to KBD Fans and go to the Odin75 folder. Odin. And then use the glorious key map. So I have my own key map. I have deleted it actually, so I would have to copy this default one, paste it here, and call it glorious. So if I had my own custom key maps, I would actually edit this key map and customize it, and then refer to this custom key map here, glorious. If you want to use the default one, then you type in default instead. So before you run this, you want to put your keyboard into bootloader, loader. I forgot the actual term, but you want to load it. I think it's called bootloader. Let's just call it bootloader for the sake of time. You want to put into bootloader. So to do that, you can disconnect the keyboard, hold the escape key, and then plug it back in while still holding the escape key. I'm going to show that really quickly. You won't see me disconnecting it, but you'll see something happen to the computer. So I just connected it. The keyboard is going to pop up as a drive. Where are you? Oh, I'm gonna do it again. There's some issues. So I disconnect the keyboard, and I'm gonna hold the escape key and connect it again. There we go. That's what I want to see. So this is a boot loader. When your keyboard is in this mode, the keyboard opens a drive directly to it. You can technically drag and drop the original KBD Fans file to restore it back to factory settings. But once you see this open screen, you can run this code, and it's going ahead and it's going to install the new firmware you just created on your local machine onto your keyboard. But when you do that, you won't be able to edit it on VIA, to my knowledge. So, oops, let's just do that. I might get some errors, but we'll see. So I ran it. It's going to automatically search for any keyboard that's in the bootloader. And it's going to push and flash that into the keyboard. Cool, I'm gonna have to edit this. Wow. I'm so lazy to edit. Okay, no errors. If you had any error, you will see it pop up and it's going to tell you where the error is at. So currently there are no errors yet. Cool. Oh, wow. not know it's gonna take this long. This isn't new. Maybe because I deleted it? Okay, great. And now it's working like a champ. Yep, I can see my Pikachu. Very nice. And that's the end of the video. I hope that if it works for you, let me know. And thank you.